Okay, we'll get started as it is at least 2:30 here in Titusville. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Terry Kerr. I'm the Executive Director for the Pennsylvania Association of Student Assistance Professionals, and we're very happy to be able to offer you this very informative webinar this afternoon. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day and schedules to join us. Before we turn it over to our presenters and introduce their webinar, I would like to do just another quick commercial regarding our annual conference that is coming up very quickly. In fact, a week from this Sunday, it begins on February 26th through the 28th. We have a couple of hundred of people registered for the POSAP side of things for the conference, and that's very exciting. We have a lot of very informative and great workshops planned for you, and it should be a very enjoyable time. Again, that's February 26th through the 28th at the Penn Stater. So if you haven't registered and would still like to come to the conference, please know that you can do so. In fact, you can walk in and register if you would like, if that's the way it has to happen. We certainly would like you to pre-register, but we will take walk-ins as well. So over the next few days, if you haven't considered or been able to register or gotten approval, hopefully that and if you want to go, hopefully that can happen. We'd like you to attend the conference. There are, as you can see at this web page, several at the conference schedule at a glance. There are several workshops every day. In fact, there's over 90 different sessions that are being offered between POSAP and PAMLE, and you can see that it's a full day and a lot of excellent choices for everyone to make a selection. So with that having been said, let's talk a lot. Let me introduce our speakers for today. The title of our webinar is this a good SAP referral? Our presenters today are Alicia Leonard. She is the lead student assistant program specialist and is part of the student assistance department at Caron Treatment Center, and she's been there since 1999. I won't read her entire bio, but Alicia has had a lot of experience over the last 15 years providing SAP services to school districts within Berks County. Her co-presenter today is Terry Taylor, licensed social worker who has 20 years experience working with children and adolescents. She started her career in the public child welfare system, working with children in foster care and so forth. And we'd like to welcome them to our webinar this afternoon. And before I turn it over to them, as far as their screen is concerned, a couple of housekeeping things. If you have a question that you would like to ask the presenters, please type it in, and I'll be monitoring the questions, and we will either ask them to answer during this session or wait till the end of the session. So we'll see how those go. If anybody has a concern or a statement they'd like to address, please type it in, and I'll be monitoring those as well. So at this point, let me change the presenter over to Alicia. And Alicia, if you want to share your screen, there you go. And the presentation's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Hello, all. See here, we're going to go right into elementary student assistance referrals. We have one referral that we're going to look at. Okay, the referral is Jack Smith. He's a first grader. He's referred from his teacher, fails to complete his in-class work. He's repeatedly asking to go see the school counselor, worried about getting on the bus in the morning. Mom stated she has a hard time getting him out of the house, worried about missing the bus after school to get him back home. He cries when he starts to think that something might be different in the day or out of routine. He's a creative student and he's kind to everyone else. And his father just switched jobs and mom is working 7 days a week. I would say this is a great referral for a couple reasons. It tells you things that mom has obviously told the school, so it gets some input from mom. It tells you some strengths that he's having. You see a small glimpse of some of the stuff that's going on at home and what the home situation looks like, but you also get to see what some of the classroom stuff is going on. It seems to be, at least in my experience, easier in the elementary buildings where the students aren't switching classes as much. So you usually are getting a referral maybe from the primary teacher, the teacher that the student's with all day long. They might go for a special here and there, but that teacher usually knows a lot of information. Everything on here is very observable. There's nothing on here that I would say is, slander or not appropriate. I think this is a very good one and a very common one that you would see, and one that we could obviously work with some more input from the parent and some more input from maybe the special teachers that are there in the building, like your art, your gym, music, and different things like that. I think this is something we could definitely work with. Okay. So we're going to talk about some middle school referrals, and my middle school kids, depending on the building I'm in, range from 5th grade to 8th grade. So you'll see a lot of differences in the types of referrals you get. But today we're going to talk about Jenny, who is a 7th grader. She was referred by her gym teacher. She makes frequent trips to the nurse or to her guidance counselor during gym class. When she is in gym class, she refuses to change into her gym uniform. She is very overweight and also has some hygiene issues. This referral is good for a lot of reasons. It gives concrete, observable information. So we know that she's refusing to change. We know she's apparently avoiding gym class because she's trying to leave gym for various reasons. Gym teachers are great referents because they will interact with almost every child in the building, and they're often in locker rooms so they can observe things that other teachers aren't going to see. Sorry, there's a train going by our building. The other thing that is good to know is it references hygiene issues. It would be nice to have some specific information about what those are, because that can mean a lot of different things. With this particular student, she would not shower. She was very malodorous. Her hair was often unkempt. Her clothing was dirty, torn, and we weren't really sure what was happening there. It did turn out to be a home issue, and we were able to help out with some clothing and things of that nature. But this is a really good, concise referral and gives a lot of good information. Okay. So next we're going to talk about Brian. Sorry, there we go. Brian is an 8th grader. He was referred by his math teacher. His grades have significantly dropped since the start of the school year. He presents as argumentative and does not hand in his assignments. And this is one that I would say is kind of a medium referral. There's some good things in here, but there's also a lot of things that I would like to see in here that could make the referral stronger. So for example, we have information about his grades and his behavior in that he's argumentative and not doing his assignments, but this is only the referral from the math teacher. Argumentative can mean a lot of different things. It could mean that he's giving her a hard time, but ultimately cooperates. It could mean that he just sits there and says, nope, I'm not doing it, and doesn't try to do his work. It could also mean that he gets more agitated and out of hand and actually more disruptive. So that information would be good to have as well. I also don't have any strengths on here, and that's something that when we see a referral, we do look to see what we can use to not only engage with the child, but to engage with the parent as well when we make that phone call home. The fact that he's not handing in his assignments I'm not sure if that's because he's not doing them. I've actually had students who show their teacher that their assignments are completed and then refuses to hand them over. It's rare, but that can happen. So again, there's good information here, but there are some things that would be missing. And this referral, most likely, we would say, yes, let's try to get more information from other teachers, but I would also go back to the math teacher who referred him and ask some clarifying information. And while I don't have a slide of a bad referral, I actually received one today, so I thought I would share that with you. I had a 9th grade student in a high school building referred by the school nurse, and the only thing, nothing was checked off on the referral form, but she hand wrote the word anger. So I'm not really sure what that means. We all have anger. I don't know if that's a problem. I can assume it is because she's referring him, but I have no specific observable information. So that's a referral that just based on what's written on that paper, I can't do anything with it. Now certainly I will go to the nurse and ask her to provide more information, but that would be an example of a bad referral that doesn't give anything for us to move in any direction. I would like to add to that, when Terry goes back to the nurse and gets more information, we need to use those as teachable moments so that we're not putting that referral in the SAP file. We're saying, this is not a good referral, and this is why it's not a good referral, and let's together write an observable referral, right, so that that referral then gets kept in the SAP file, and that teacher, well, in this case, that nurse, can then next time write one that has observable behaviors in it. It's very easy to forget or in the moment write something down, but if we can teach them how to write an observable one, and it takes like 5-10 minutes really to sit down with someone and do that, then the chances of us getting another one that's not written correctly are rare. Good point. Next, we're looking at high school referrals. And so we have Joe. He's an 11th grader. He was referred from his teacher. He frequently has to go to the bathroom about 4 times during a class period. He performs below his ability. He needs to be redirected in class about 2 to 3 times a class period. He has stated a disinterest in school. He fails to complete in-class homework and in-class work and homework. He's disruptive in class, yelling out, talking while the teacher is giving directions. He sometimes appears tired and tries to sleep during class. He has been overheard talking about parties on the weekend, and he is creative and his parent is involved in school. Now this referral is nice. I like this referral. It has a ton of information on it. It actually clarifies, so it gives like 2 to 3 times, 4 times. So it really like states exactly what's going on. Instead of just disruptive classroom behaviors, it's nice because they write exactly what the disruptive classroom behaviors are, which I really like. So the frequency, all that is really good. The thing that I am not happy about with this referral is that it states he's been overheard talking about parties on the weekends. And we got this referral, midweek. So that means that he's been talking in the past about parties on the weekends. Potentially, he has said that he's been to these parties. He's maybe even said that he's used or done some sort of substances at these parties. Normally, what I would like to see happen, and if you look at most school policies, it would say, if you overhear a student talking about a party or using substances, that should be an immediate call down to someone. So if your student assistance coordinator isn't there, or your liaison's not in your building, it should at least be a call down to the school counselor of Joe to say, today in class he stated I was at a party this weekend, I was drinking or I was using, and we now need to do something. So this would be, if we took out, he has been overheard talking about parties on the weekends, this would be an excellent referral to me. I would send checklists out to his other teachers, get some more information, and we go from there. But if this was on here and we got it right away, I would want to actually call home first. So I would want a phone call made home to the parent right away to say, this is what your son was overheard stating in class. We are extremely concerned because he spoke about being at parties and potentially spoke about using at parties. Do we need to send still to all his teachers? Yes, I'd still like to send, but we also might at that point in time be getting a permission to maybe assess right away, because we need to look at this more immediate so that he's not going to even more parties or using even more potentially before we get a chance to see him. Okay. And then we have Aaron. So Aaron's a 9th grader and referred by the teacher. Aaron has an IEP. And this is interesting. I was happy that we would put one on here because we do get, a lot of referrals from IEP students, especially because Aaron is refusing to go to the IEP case manager. So they're not going for help. They're not utilizing their support in there. In fact, she is also not going to the resource room because while she was in the resource room, she was extremely distracting to other students that were trying to get help. Again, they use disruptive classroom behavior, yelling out, making bird noises, laughs or ignores the teachers when it's supposed to be a she, but I'm switching all the she and he's around, but it's a she, is trying to redirect, often criticizes others to the point that several students have asked to be moved away from Aaron. So the referral is really good. This would be definitely a referral that I would want to talk to the resource room teacher. So, and in our building, the resource room teacher is not necessarily going to be on Aaron's schedule. So when you send those observable behavior checklists out, usually you're sending them out to everyone that's on the schedule. With Aaron, I would want to include her IEP case manager, and I would also want to include the resource room teacher so that you're getting a good picture of everywhere Aaron is throughout the day. If you were only looking at her scheduled teachers that are on there, I don't know that you would get the full picture of what's going on with Aaron. So it's good that they put on there that she currently has an IEP and that she wasn't allowed in the resource room anymore so that you can find out directly from them some more observable behaviors. Okay, before we go into other ways that SAP is involved, we just want to read to you what we believe are some good reasons to make a referral that are observables that you could share with your teachers and faculty members.
Okay, and it's easy to make referrals and use everyday language without really explaining what the observable behavior is. So you want to put things in like change in academic performance, and that can be sudden drop in grades or failing grades. Repeated disciplinary issues, it's also really helpful if you can explain what that is. Some students will get detention or an in-school suspension because they've had so many detentions. Other students may get in-school suspension for a more major offense. So if there are a lot of disciplinary issues, if you can kind of put down the frequency and the type of discipline, that would be really good. Frequent visits to the nurse, guidance counselor. I think also any request to leave the room during class time is important to look at, and where exactly are they going? And if they're requesting to leave the room, to go to one particular spot and you're finding them somewhere else, that's good to note as well. They could be meeting with other students or just wandering the halls as an attempt to avoid classwork.
What's also interesting is to note what they're like when they come back from these repeated visits. So if you have a student that's always going to the bathroom during your class, and maybe even more than once during your class, what does that student look like when they come back into the classroom? Are they teary-eyed? Are they unsteady on their feet? Do they smell maybe differently than when they left, maybe smoke or anything along those lines, just so you get a good idea of what's actually going on when they're returning too.
Right. You also want to note frequent outbursts of anger and crying. A lot of our high achieving students have anxiety, so they may not necessarily be acting out in bad ways in the classroom, but if they're crying unexpectedly, if they're getting very upset when they don't understand something, or they get their test back and they got an 85 and they burst into tears, that's a good indication that something's going on with them. Unexplained physical injuries. Also, the self-report of a family member who is an alcoholic or drug addict. If a student tells you, my mom is an alcoholic and she's drinking every night, that's definitely SAPable. It's observed because it's being reported to you from the student. It also gives us a good indication that things at home may not be as structured or as stable as that child needs, and there are services we can put into place to help the student without necessarily calling home to the parent and putting that student in a tough position. Any inappropriate sexual conduct, but again, be specific. Is he grabbing another student's butt? Are they making sexual statements? Do they appear by their behaviors to be upsetting other students in the classroom? Poor hygiene, we spoke about. The recent death or incarceration and deployment of a loved one. I do work with a lot of kids who have family members in the military, and that can be as scary to them as a divorce or a death, especially if they're going overseas to Afghanistan or the Middle East where they may not have a lot of contact with them. They really do go through a short, well, not short, but an altered grieving process because they don't have that contact with them. Inattention, fidgetiness, decrease in classroom participation, sleeping in class, obviously speaks for itself. If they're being picked on or bullied, that, again, you want to be a little specific. What is happening? Is that student contributing to it at all? So if someone is making fun of them for hygiene issues, are they, not putting deodorant on after gym class and coming into class all sweaty with their gym clothes still on? So that would be important to know. Any other physical symptoms like red, bloodshot eyes, if they're getting into fist fights, and certainly truancy, which we're going to talk about in more detail. But those are all really good behaviors that if you're seeing this and it's out of character for the student, it's increasing, or it's lasting a long time, these are behaviors that you would want to put on that SAP referral.
And one thing that I think is very great to have on that SAP referral is a box or somewhere that says, I have more information, but I want to talk to the SAP team about it. Sometimes there's too much for a teacher to actually put on there, and they're trying to be observable and they're trying to just check off the boxes and get as much down, but they have a lot more information. So if you give them that option at the bottom of the referral sheet, hey, I'd like to come down, I'd like to talk to somebody more about this, then you can get even more information.
And one other thing I'd like to add, with more and more schools using Chromebooks or iPads and school internet accounts, if your IT department has kind of like key phrases that they're tracking, that is important to note on a referral as well. I have gotten some referrals from our IT department that so-and-so is sending an email after school 3 days last week making suicidal statements, or a student has been Googling how to hang yourself and watching videos of hangings. So that can be a big red flag, and it's great that our IT person is really on top of that. The other person that you might want to tap into as well is the librarian. If kids are checking out a lot of books on death, suicide, other social issues like racism, drug use, etc., the librarian has a way to kind of track what they're checking out, and if it's looking like a pattern, that could be another really good behavior to put on that SAP referral.
Going back to the IT, because I'm really excited Terry brought that up. We have an excellent IT department at where Terry and I both work doing student assistance work. And one thing to note is that if your IT person is reading anything that talks about child abuse or physical abuse or sexual abuse, your IT person will then need to do the child line referral. So just so we're kind of all on the same page with that, if you do have your IT person doing stuff like this and making those referrals, you want to make sure that you guys have a conversation with the IT department to know that if you're seeing this, they too then might need to do a child line referral because they're the first one reading it and the first one seeing it. They can work with the school counselors and student assistants to how to set that up and how to go from there. But I know that was an eye-opener for our IT department when they started looking into this and were referring that they were seeing stuff and not realizing that they would need to make some referrals to Childline. So just another thing to keep kind of in the back of your head if you do have an IT department that's tracking things. Okay. Other ways SAP can be involved in the school setting. Truancy has been a big one that we started really looking at in the one school that I'm in about 2 or 3 years ago. September is Attendance Awareness Month in Pennsylvania, which, I mean, there's something that's an awareness, 3 or 4 times every month we could do awareness stuff, but September is Attendance Awareness Month. And something that I think has been a great prevention with student assistance is we started to look at the end of the school year, any student that had 20 or more absences that school year, if they were unexcused or excused, they got flagged. And what we did at the beginning of the next school year is we sent a letter introducing student assistance, talking to them about the student assistance team, kind of, you could add a whole bunch of things to it. But what we definitely put in there was how you made a referral, like how you call into the attendance line. So we put it all on there. We looked at how many days you have to be out, when you have to bring a note in. It was all general reminders. And then it had the SAP team's name and number at the bottom and said, let's get ahead of this. Let's try not to have this many this school year. If there's something going on, call us so that we can work on it beforehand. What we've seen in the school district from just doing it 3 years is that our attendance has drastically reduced, or the people being out has drastically reduced. We don't have nearly as many that are out, and if they are out, there's notes are coming in on time, they're legitimate notes, they're bringing stuff in from a doctor, or they're discussing stuff ahead of time. Hey, my kid is going to be out, or I can't get my kid in, and I'm having trouble with it. And I know you sent this letter out in the beginning of the year, and I need to make a referral. Like, I need to talk to somebody about this because I can't get him out of the house. And this is what's going on. And at least then we get the heads up before it goes to a district justice, before it starts looking at fines, before they're missing so much that they become overwhelmed about even coming back to school. So this is a great way that SAP can really be a prevention tool, that you can really use this to do preventative stuff before it gets out of control. Another way is re-entry meetings. This is very interesting. We had, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, we had students that would go to mental health placements, and they would be out, you know, for maybe a week to 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden they would show up at school, and no one had any idea that they were coming back. They had no paperwork. The first period teacher would call and say, so-and-so just showed up in my class and has no homework done, and is having a meltdown because I'm 5 chapters ahead from where she was when she left. And we, as much as we tried to get a handle on it, we really did not have much success until we started putting something in our handbook that stated, if you are out for more than 3 days for really anything, we are going to require that you at least have a phone call reentry meeting or a face-to-face reentry meeting. So what this means is that if you are out for maybe a 72-hour hold, which there's some kids that are out for just a 72-hour hold, or you're out for a drug and alcohol inpatient, or you're at a partial mental health placement hospital, so you're there for maybe a week to 2 weeks, or inpatient mental health hospital, or even an alternative ed placement where kids are away for maybe 45 days and then back in the school. We are making it mandatory that you must come in with one of your parents or guardian, and we want paperwork, a discharge summary or some sort of paperwork if you have it, from wherever you were, stating how it went. And we're going to sit down at this meeting with, usually the student assistance liaison is going to be there, and your assistant principal can be there. The school counselor should definitely be there. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things. We're going to discuss any needs that the student wants from the school. We're going to look at, are there any triggers? Like, what's going on? Could there be something that's going to trigger you here at school? And if there is, let's develop a plan of how to handle that. Look at that discharge summary. Do they actually have follow-up counseling set up? A lot of times on that summary sheet, it says mental health outpatient counseling, but they're not actually signed up with anybody. They didn't make any phone calls. There's not an appointment made. And that's why having your liaisons there, they can talk to them about, you know, what resources are out there, who might be some good ones to start to call and to get an appointment set up. If it says that you should be going weekly, well, let's get you set up with someone weekly. You're going to identify a safe place for the student and possibly a safe person. So these students that are coming back might get an anytime pass, we call them. That, you know, if they're having a rough day or something is happening or a trigger comes up, they can go up to the teacher, show them a pass that says, I'm allowed to go down to guidance immediately, and they can walk on down to guidance. And if they want, they can sit there for a little while and collect themselves. Maybe they need to call their therapist, and there's going to be a phone down there and a confidential room for them to do that in. Or they can maybe meet with the school counselor or someone from the SAP team or a liaison and check in with them. Okay? You're also going to look at how to handle questions from other students that say, where have you been? What's been going on? How are they going to handle them? A lot of kids work on that in the placement, but it's always good to review that with them there at the school on that first day. They're going to look at how frequently do you want to check in with someone, either a SAP team member or a liaison or a school counselor. You're going to make sure releases are signed and provided so that you can exchange information with maybe the outpatient counselor. You're going to coordinate resources and referrals. We talked to that. And on the first day, it is really good if you have the students stay in guidance that day and have each of their teachers come down and meet with them individually to go over what did they miss? What is the teacher going to excuse? What are they not going to excuse? And the things that they're not going to excuse, what's the timeline for that student to have it done in? The last thing you want to do is have a student come back from a placement where it went really well and then completely overwhelm them the first day of school, that they don't feel like they're drowning again and they don't see a way out. So you want to do it very methodically. You want to really sit down and look at everything that first day and have them stay down there so they can get work done, they can meet with the teacher, they can get a plan, in place, and then the next day start back with the regular classes.
Yeah, this is also helpful too, because when those teachers need to speak with the student, they know where they are. Mm-hmm. And different teachers have different planning periods, so they can just pop on into the guidance office, say hello, kind of get a handle on things, and it's easier for everyone. Okay. So most of our schools have an emotional support program, whether it's an actual classroom or some schools will have tutorial or personal development time built into their emotional support curriculum. SAP groups can be really helpful in this area. What we can do is if your SAP liaison is providing groups in the school, we can take pieces of different curriculum and work on social skills, conflict resolution skills, something as simple as what are appropriate social boundaries. Some of our emotional support students kind of lack those skills, and it makes it more difficult for them when they're interacting with their typically developed peers. We can work on things like how to start a conversation and how to keep it going. It's not always just recognizing that the conversation's over or that the other person isn't interested, but recognizing that give and take and taking turns of discussion and conversation. We also focus on what information do you want to share and what information should you keep to yourself. We've all had that student who just blurts anything out in the middle of class and doesn't think twice about it. So we go over some of that. We talk about the difference between a friend and a peer. Some of these kids, if someone in their math class smiles at them and says hi to them that's their friend. And then they may take that to the point of calling, texting, and sometimes it can lead to borderline inappropriateness. So we do talk about the difference and how we behave with a friend versus how we behave with a peer. And I spend a lot of time on social media and texting guidelines. Especially with girls, a lot of drama starts over Facebook, Snapchat, or texting because you lose a lot of that nonverbal communication skill. So in teaching them again, what do you put out on Facebook? What do you keep to yourself? Should you engage in a disagreement with someone on Facebook because now everybody sees your business and everybody's chiming in, and once it's out there in cyberspace, it is never completely erased. Even if you go back and delete that comment, you can't help the fact that 25 people already saw it. They may have shared it. They may have commented on it. They may have referenced it somewhere. So we'll have students who will say, well, I put it out there, but then I deleted it and I took it back. That's really not enough. So we go over that a lot. Kids these days typically communicate by texting. So when they say they're talking to someone, I will clarify if that means face-to-face, because they consider texting to be talking. And again, if a specific group time is not available, the SAP liaison can work with the emotional support teacher and staff to look at presenting some of these things during social skills development, tutorial, or personal development, which is a requirement of the emotional support curriculum. They also like the break and having someone else take care of that. So, similarly, if your school has alternative education programs on site, SAP services can be used there as well. Depending on the grade level and the mix of the students, you can choose from a variety of curricula and pull pieces out or just follow one curriculum after another after another. So I have utilized groups on anger management, teen intervene, which is when you know a student is using drugs or alcohol, and the goal of this program is just to look at their attitudes of drug and alcohol use, give them the current information about how the drugs affect your body, and let them come to terms with, is this something they want to keep doing, or is this something they want to maybe take a second look at? Marijuana intervention is a very similar program, but it focuses just on marijuana. There's also drug and alcohol awareness, which is hopefully a precursor to them actually using. Changing families and teen issues. And again, this can be incorporated as a therapeutic component that's required in alt ed. All alt ed classrooms are required to have some type of therapy for 1 to 2 hours per week. So if you go in there and do a 45-minute group session with them, that's helping them fulfill that requirement as well. I have found with these students, it's best to use a guided, structured curriculum. I've tried to kind of go in there and kind of let kids talk about different issues that might be going on, and it can very quickly escalate and become inappropriate and out of control. So I do advise having a specific curriculum. All right. And I think that is it. I did see some typing going on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we have some questions.
Yes. Do we have some questions?
Yeah, there was a question about the truancy prevention letter, and will it be or could it be available for schools to use as a guide or a template?
Oh, yes, you definitely could use that as a guide or a template. What you would need to do is just make sure that it's obviously the same. Some schools send letters after maybe 3 days. Some schools send letters, I think I'm not totally up on it, but I think the mandatory is after 10. But just make sure that whatever you write in there is exactly what you have in your handbook for your school, because that you don't want to mislead them in any way. You want it to be exactly what you are requiring at your school to turn in. But yeah, you can definitely use that as a template.
Well, a possibility for us to have you email that to me, and I can post it on our website.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that'd be great. Another question, will we get a copy of the PowerPoint? And I did send a chat message about that, Tom. I will be posting this webinar, a recording of the webinar, on our resources and links page on our POSAP website for members only. With that video recording, audio recording, I will be attaching the PowerPoint. So you can download the PowerPoint from the website in hopefully within the next day or so. Other questions? guess we want to give a minute just to, in case people are typing, but.
Okay.
I don't see anything being posted as of now. If there is a question that does come up, please feel free to email me, and I will forward that question on to Alicia and Terry, and I'm sure they'll be happy to get back to you with the answer to that question. Again, I guess at this point we'll go ahead and start closing the session. I want to first of all say that you will be receiving an email asking for your responses and as a survey to this webinar and suggestions for future webinars in the next day or so. So we'd appreciate your feedback. And lastly, of course, we'd like to thank Alicia and Terry for their presentation today. It was very beneficial and a lot of good information, and we appreciate that. We'll have one more webinar in the near future. I believe it's going to be scheduled for sometime in April, and we'll have announcements coming out about that shortly. With that having been said, we'll go ahead and close the session, and thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.